This podcast is made possible by you, the supporters of WPLN and WNXP, Nashville Public Radio.
This is the Nash Villager Podcast. It's March 18th, 2025. On this day in 1662, the world's first public bus service began operation in Paris. It consisted of 7 horse-drawn carriages, each carrying 6 to 8 passengers at a time. They ran on regular routes through the city for a fare of 5 pennies. It was the brainchild of Blaise Pascal. Yes, that Pascal, the philosopher and mathematician. The French king granted him a monopoly on the business idea, which was how a lot of things worked in Europe back then. But the strict rules about class etiquette were applied in a way that seems kind of strange from a modern point of view. And perhaps it wasn't great for business. Basically, the only people allowed to ride the bus were the elites, who most likely already had other access to carriages or horses. Soldiers and peasants were strictly forbidden from catching a ride. And so the innovative service went belly up after about a decade, and that idea for public transit lay dormant for another couple of centuries. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee with historical context from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. You know, there was a time when public transit was a vibrant thing in Nashville. There were horse-drawn buses in this city in the 19th century, then streetcars before the personal vehicle became the standard, and a lot of middle and upper-class Nashvillians came to treat the idea of transit as dormant. But of course, with the vote approving the transit referendum last November, there's a lot of hope that interest in riding the bus will rise as the service offered becomes more robust. So how are things going with that transit plan? Well, last month, the half-cent sales tax increase went into effect. There's always a delay while everything is processed in order to get the money from the businesses that collected the tax to the city and then separated out into the proper accounts. So the first funding for transit improvements will become available next month. In the meantime, Mayor Freddie O'Connell's office has put together a supplemental budget request that Metro Council is expected to vote on tonight. Basically, his office has estimated how much they'll collect in earmarked sales tax revenue. They think it'll be about $59 million by the end of the fiscal year in June. And they've identified 11 components of the transit plan to get started using that money. Some elements are improvements that riders will notice very soon, like increased frequency on routes as soon as this summer, and expanding the number of people who can qualify for free or reduced fares at some point in the fall. Other items on the mayor's list amount to taking the first step on a number of multi-phase projects. He's eager to start the design and planning of a new transit center in Sobro, a new facility for maintaining the bus fleet, upgrading traffic signals, and a handful of street infrastructure changes, including physical changes to lanes and medians along Gallatin Pike. What we see in this initial list is an interest in jumping in first to big projects along those major routes. It's the redesign of Gallatin through East Nashville, but also piloting the idea of curbside bus lanes on West End and adding a special lane on a portion of Murfreesboro Road that would let buses pass by car traffic. And the mayor's proposal also includes security upgrades, installing fiber optic lines to support some of the technical aspects of various projects, and buying a handful of new buses to expand the fleet. Altogether, that list basically makes up step one of many in the multi-year effort to implement the transit plan. In just a few minutes, making music in the face of online harassment. That's coming up after the newscast.
Tennessee's legislature has passed a record-breaking number of anti-LGBTQ laws. I'm Miriam Yao, and as WPLN's Power and Equity reporter, I focus not only on how marginalized communities contend with those new laws, but how they come together in spite of them.
I think what gives me hope is that someone like you is covering this. Because if the overwhelming narrative is one of defeat, how can we have hope?
Listen here on 90.3 WPLN News.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. More Tennesseans could be denied bail under a joint resolution advancing in the State House. WPLN's Miriam Yao reports that the Senate passed the measure yesterday.
Right now, judges can hold people without bail only if they've committed a capital murder, the kind of offense where the death penalty is on the table. This constitutional amendment would ask voters whether to expand it to include second-degree murder, aggravated rape, terrorism, and any crime that doesn't allow for parole until 85% of the way through a person's sentence.
It opens up a legislative backdoor.
That's attorney Wesley Clark.
To sort of tack on anything they want in the future by requiring the sentence be served at least 85%. There are many offenses right now today which require that. And of course, sentencing is entirely up to the legislature, and it can change year to year.
Offenses like carjacking, aggravated robbery, and certain gun-related charges could apply under the proposal. The crimes listed as part of the resolution could lead to overcrowding in the state's jails, Clark said, since the pretrial period could last more than a year. Mariana Baca-Yao, WPLN News.
Metro and local leaders are working to protect homelessness funding in light of the Trump administration's pledge to eliminate support for diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. At the start of this year, Nashville announced a record $11.8 million of funding for the Continuum of Care program. Overseen by the Office of Homeless Services, the program seeks to end homelessness in Middle Tennessee by coordinating funding, housing, and other services. The program has since renamed its Equity and Diversity Committee as the Unity and Opportunity Committee. The group had been evaluating the inequities in homeless services. Federal data indicates that Black, Hispanic, and Native American people disproportionately experience homelessness, as do veterans and people with disabilities. The Nashville Banner reports that while the program is reevaluating for the sake of the funding, they have yet to actually see the money. They're still waiting for it to be distributed. In addition, the federal contractor that helped Metro navigate the funding process recently had its contract eliminated. Tennessee lawmakers are considering a bill to remove environmental protections for certain types of wetlands called isolated wetlands. The bill was held last month, but WPLN's Caroline Eggers reports it's back on the schedule this week with a new amendment.
Tennessee has upwards of 400,000 individual isolated wetlands, and most are quite tiny, like 2 acres or less. And the newly amended bill would deregulate these saturated slices of land. Ryan Jackwood, who directs science at the Harpeth Conservancy, explains a scenario for a developer.
Normally, if you were going to develop a 10-acre area of land, you would count all the wetlands in that area and might say, okay, well, I've got 5 different wetlands and they all add up to be, 5 acres or something like that. And then you would be kind of on the hook for those 5 acres.
But under the proposed legislation, the developer would only look at each wetland individually. So if they're all less than an acre or 2, then they could just drain them and start building. And that's just one scenario. This would be true even if it's a massive development on a huge plot of land. Jackwood says the way the legislation is worded means developers could do a lot of damage. Caroline Eggers, WPLN News.
The next season of the Nashville Symphony offers an impressive array of genres. There will be the classical mainstays such as Beethoven's Fifth and Dvorak's New World Symphony, pieces from underrepresented composers, and experimental new music like a duet for laptop and orchestra. Other highlights include appearances from big names such as opera star Renee Fleming and jazz trumpeter Wynton Marsalis. For non-classical fans, the orchestra will perform alongside screenings of movies like Star Wars and Frozen, and especially for kids, there's The Composer is Dead, which introduces various instruments in the form of a murder mystery by author Lemony Snicket. A couple of months ago, our sister music discovery station WNXP released an episode of their Music Citizens podcast about pressing vinyl at Physical Music Products in Smyrna. Well, yesterday, in a very meta move, they went back to PMP to press that very podcast about vinyl onto vinyl. PMP's Colby Gustafson explained the process while the plant's owner and operator Piper Payne looked on with WNXP's Justin Barney.
All right, motor on. And now we're going to start pushing vinyl through the barrel.
I don't know that I've ever had my voice pressed on vinyl before.
Wow! First one! Look at that! Wow, hold up. There it is, baby!
WNXP will host a vinyl listening party for their pressing of Music Citizens at Vinyl Tap on April 6th at 4 p.m. You're welcome to come and scoop up the album yourself. You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org. Former Nashville artist Karuk is stuck in a cycle of online bullying. 2 years ago, they went viral for making a song in response to online trolls. And now, after announcing their tour, Karuk's bullies are louder and more threatening than ever. WNXP music reporter Justin Barney went to the home of Corinne Savage, who is Karuk, and their partner Olivia Barton, and found that even though Karuk continues to stand up to their bullies, they do not want this fight.
Like, Corinne is so harmless.
Is that a compliment?
A couple years ago, Karuk found themselves scrolling some hateful comments that were posted under a video that they released. And then they did the one thing that everyone tells you not to do. They responded in a song.
Why is everybody on the internet so mean? Why is everybody so afraid of what they've never seen?
The radiant positivity of Karuk's response to toxic online hate launched the song into virality. It was so popular, it spun off into a children's book and a nationwide headlining tour. In November, they announced the tour by posting a video to Instagram. That post featured a new song.
This song specifically is an incredibly joyful song about being non-binary. It's called They.
It's been a while, nice to see ya. There's something I've been meaning to say. No, I'm okay. You know how I'm gay. Well, now I go by they.
The video was like, after a few hours, immediately pushed into a community of people that obviously do not subscribe to that, that are very against the trans community, the non-binary community, and did not like the song and did not like me and were incredibly loud about it.
I think you said it's happening again.
I posted it maybe like in the afternoon at noon. By like 6 p.m. I deleted Instagram because if I keep it on my phone, I'm going to just look at it.
But the video kept going. Over the next few days, it got over 1 million views. Some of that was genuine excitement from real fans, but many of the comments and DMs were threatening.
The violence within the messages were what was so alarming, especially because it's a tour announcement. I'm telling them where I'm going to be and when I'm going to be there.
You cried a lot.
But the hate did not stop them. The joy that Karuk has for being themselves is the top note of their personality. It's the thing that makes their music so genuine. The joy can also be threatening.
I think that I scare people, that I'm like excited to be non-binary. I think that that's scary.
But Karuk simply cannot stop being themselves. So they respond, which starts the cycle over again. In the face of the threats, they got back on Instagram.
And then it started to hit me like, nobody's advertising my tour. Like, the only tour video that's doing anything right now is being pushed to the wrong people. So I need to get back on there and take back my power and get my audience back.
You keep making things out of it, which is beautiful, but I'm kind of like, when do you just not have to deal with it at all?
And I'm just going to say this. I'm not going to stop being trans. I'm not going to stop being non-binary. I'm not going to stop making music. I'm not going to stop being online. I might take a break for my mental health, but like, I'm not going anywhere. They can't hate me away.
Justin Barney, Nashville Public Radio.
They say I signed up for this and know exactly where to hit. So take a bow and take their and make some stupid song about it again and again and again.
We do this roundup of Nashville news every weekday. Please consider subscribing on your favorite podcasting app. And thanks so much to all of you who have left 5 stars, a thumbs up, or a review in your app of choice. That little bit of love really does mean a lot. And of course, everything at WPLN News is listener supported. You can make a donation at WPLN.org. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one. and we'll catch back up tomorrow.